Thank you,
I'm with
DeRay.
Chad. We met a long time ago in the heart of the protests, and
Same.
we're back together again today. So I'm excited to be here.
This is DeRay Mckesson. He's an American civil rights activist and co-founder, executive director of Campaign Zero. I'm a good reader. A social justice organization leading nationwide structural change to create equity and justice in our criminal legal system. He was a key leader in the Ferguson uprising in 2014. Uprising, wow. Praised by President Barack Obama for his community organizer work, he serves in board and advisory capacities for a number of policy and advocacy organizations. And he now hosts Pod Save the People, which explores news, culture, social justice, and politics through deep conversations with influencers and experts. What I'm going to say, I'm stepping away now from the written bio. I met DeRay, I want to say in 2016 in Bed-Stuy
At a
and
party.
at a party, at a birthday party. And as people do, we just started chatting in the room. And like I had seen DeRay, I was just starting to come into my identity as like a writer, creator thing. And I'd seen DeRay, obviously. I knew the blue Patagonia vest. Um, you're also from Baltimore. I'm from Silver Spring, Maryland. So it's kind of by accident, another DMV sort of thing. But
Baltimoreans don't claim the DMV.
really,
We're from Baltimore.
I mean, you are, yeah. And it is like, it's 30 minutes away, but it is like another,
It's
it's
we're
a different
close though. We're
place.
close.
We're close. We're
Yeah.
close enough. To get to the point though, I remember seeing you on TV. I remember seeing you on the internet. I remember seeing you on Instagram. And you were at that time becoming really the face of the movement in a lot of ways, the face of the movement. And the movement was just becoming itself at that point. And I remember, and here's the question. I remember in as I was starting to write about race, as I was starting to find my own voice in speaking honestly about white supremacy and anti-blackness, I remember just being like, it must be really scary to be him. It must be really scary for white people to see this person, associate some white people, see this person, associate him with this movement. And I just wondered, like, dude, are you scared? Were you scared?
I think in the heat of it, it was just so wild that I knew people wanted us to be afraid. Like I knew the police wanted us to be afraid. I knew white people wanted us to be afraid. So I tried not to like sit in the fear. There were definitely moments where you're like, okay, this is nuts, right? Or
Mm,
like getting shot at with rubber bullets or tear gas or pepper spray or dragged out of police department by my ankles. My birthday in 2016, I was in jail, and the next I
mm,
finally got out. So there were definitely moments where you're like, this is dicey. But I tried not to like lean into the fear, and especially in that moment, I was 26, 27. And I was like, they gonna kill us either way. They go, like we out here because they killing people.
mm.
So if something really bad happens, the reality is that something really bad was gonna happen anyway.
Wow.
So so yeah, we just sort of like went through it. In hindsight, I look and I'm like, we were crazy. It was like it was a good crazy, but we definitely were like, we just were like, we're right. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I do. And even still, I got to press the issue because being right is not always enough to make someone not be afraid. It's not, and it's usually not enough to make somebody do what they are supposed to do. So I hate to ask a question that is probably going to feel a little bit broad, but it's just like, why are you wired that way? Like, why are you wired to still do the thing even if it risks your life?
I don't, with Mike Brown, Mike was literally as old as my students would have been. So I used to teach sixth grade math. I taught in Eastern Europe, Brooklyn. It was
Mm,
incredible. Um, Teaching is one of the best things I've ever done. And then I opened up an after school center. So I had a long relationship in education. And when Mike Brown was killed, he was the age of the first students I taught. And I remember, and I worked at a school. I worked in the district office by then, so I wasn't really around. The only time I would go to a school would be if something like really bad happened. I wouldn't be at a school otherwise,
mm,
and so I just was never around kids anymore. And I remember being like, if the least I can do is like show up on a weekend for Mike Brown, like that was like the least I could do. So Friday, I went to work. Saturday morning, I woke up and I drove to Ferguson and I was in Ferguson Saturday and Sunday. Sunday was the first night of the curfew, and I got tear gassed, and I was like, I will stay. Like that is the wildest thing that's ever happened to me. We didn't do anything wrong. The curfew's supposed to be at midnight.
mm,
They tear gassed us at 8 p.m.
mm.
But I went because I was like, if I truly believe in kids, this is literally the least I can do on the weekend. Is like that's like easy. And then none of us knew that the protests would be what they were.
I have to ask this. Again, it's gonna feel. I don't know how it's gonna feel, but it is the question to me in some ways. I saw you on Z-Way, saw your Z-Way episode. I watched it 2 nights ago, and then I watched it again last night. And we're gonna talk about Z-Way also, and like her show getting canceled, and shows getting canceled, and entertainment and all that stuff. Because I see you around that world sometimes. But you just kept saying you love black people. She asked a question. You're like, I love black people. You're like, she's like, do you love the government? You're like, I love black people. Why do you love black people?
Oh, I love black people. So one is I think we gotta like start normalizing that as just like a declarative sentence. It's like I love black people. And when I think about all the things that I know are true, that is one of the few things that's just true. It's like I don't have to like think about it too much. I don't have to give it a caveat. I don't have to like, I don't know, try to add another sentence. It's like that is in and of itself. I love black people. And so, to your question, why do I love black people? When I say I love black people, it means something specific to me. It means that I understand that I'm not just, I don't just have like affinity for black people, but that I like understand that I'm not just their keeper, but I am them, right? That I am like, I am you, I am my sister, I am my brother. Like that the sense of community is not just a theoretical thing, it's like a lived thing. So that's what I mean. The second is that I mean that I'm not sure that the world should be easy for people, but I know that it shouldn't be hard.
Mm.
And part of our work around justice is to make sure the world's not hard for people. And for black people, the world's just harder than it has to be. So I believe that. And the third thing is that I understand that black people are like at our core, like joy is the thing that has always been our gift. Like we can just make magic out of us. And that's when I say I love black people, that's like what it means. So those three things I try to keep like real for me every day. And some days I do it better than others. Uh, but yeah, I love black people. And more importantly, I wouldn't be here if black people didn't love me. Like black people loved me. You know what I mean? Like they
Yeah.
loved me. Like my parents and my grandparents and what it's like to
Oh
grow up
yeah.
with old black people. Like did you
Mm-hmm.
grow up with old black people?
Grandmas, both my grandfathers passed when I was young, but grandmothers definitely, Grandma definitely loved me. Aunts, godmothers,
And the
all that.
way that generation of black people loved you was like a hug, right? A little bit of pressure, a little bit of love. Like
Oh yeah, yeah,
you got it, and it was
yeah. Oh
like
yeah.
sit down, man, sit down. It didn't mean let's negotiate them. It was
No,
like
it's the drags.
sit down, or like I think about my grandfather used to make cream of wheat for us in the
Mhm.
morning. I think about I'm not a hoarder, but I definitely buy in bulk just because they bought like I don't know. Did your grandparents freeze things?
Yeah, if I go to my grandmother's house right now,
Whole freezer full.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
absolutely. Boone,
So
Maryland.
yes, it was like we bought things in the fall for the winter. Like we
Sure.
snapped peas and shucked corn. So I'm used to having 50 bars of soap because they bought soap, whatever's on sale.
Right,
Like
right.
black people loved me.
All right.
And that is how I can like stand up tall today.
You keep saying they loved you. Do they love you still?
Yeah, yeah. But what got me here was that black people loved me.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. And I
Um,
I asked that question because black people also give you a hard time.
what you talking
I mean,
about? uh,
so black people give you a hard time. Like I mean, and we're all these different things and all these different individual black folks and all that shit. But black people give you a hard time. Um they criticize, they question you, they scrutinize. They pay very close attention to how you move, what you say. First of all, I'm throwing that out there because that's how I see it. Do you feel that?
yeah, I think that I did and do work in public, and part of that means that like people have thoughts and ideas about it. Some I like, some I don't like. I'm much better today at not taking any of it like too personal, either the love or the not love.
Yeah.
But people do feel strongly. I think what frustrates me is uh people just will never see how much work goes into all of it.
Uh,
And they really do think sometimes I just like showed up and you're like, I'm like, oh my goodness, like at Campaign Zero, we have 35 campaigns. We have almost 40 staff members. And,
mm,
it's like we have all this stuff that we're juggling and that we have to know the content of and da da da. And it's not, but people sometimes are like, I don't know, they just think it's like vibes. And it's like, yeah, I'm doing like I'm doing a podcast. This is one of 12 meetings I have today. It's like this is an important thing, and there are a lot of other important things that
Yeah.
people only see Z-Way, right?
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
and that drives me nuts. The second thing is that sometimes we get criticized, and I don't know a kinder way to say this, but because other people don't know the content well, and what you will
Mm.
I wake up every day and like this is a Campaign Zeros thing too, is that like you won't catch us not knowing the content.
Hmm.
Like we know the content. So we launched A Can't Wait. People are, still in a tizzy
Yeah.
about it. They're like, reformists, da, da, da. And I'm open to like, maybe we did it like, if we did something wrong, let us know. It's why we make all of our data public. We make everything public. So like if we did something wrong, let us know.
Right.
And if you can do something better with what we did, do it.
Oh.
Cool. But A Can't Wait is one I read. There's an activist who I respect. I like them. They are older. And in their book, they criticize A Can't Wait. So I'm reading it and I'm like, maybe it's some new stuff. Like maybe it's something I didn't contend with. And I finished reading it and I'm like, I don't really know if you know what A Can't, like, I don't know if you've actually read any of these policies, right?
Right.
You just have a general critique. Okay. And then I read, there's a writer at the New York Magazine, who's a young black man who you probably know, who I know him, I know his wife. They wrote, I was part of the cover story a couple
Mhm.
years ago that he wrote. And then there's a black woman who wrote a book about abolition.
Sure.
Both of those, when Tyree Nichols was killed in Memphis, the Memphis Police Department has a whole website dedicated to A Can't Wait, being like, we're compliance with all eight.
Huh.
Both of them wrote articles being like, this is a sign of the danger of reform, right?
Mm.
Tyree Nichols is beat, all these officers is caught on camera, and they did everything DeRay told them to do. Like they did A Can't Wait earnestly. The police department's releasing press releases about A Can't Wait, like they did it, right?
Mm.
So I see this, and I don't lead. I used to personally lead A Can't Wait, and then it went to somebody else, and now somebody else has it. So I know A Can't Wait, but I don't do it every day like I used to. I used to personally read the policies and code them. I don't do that anymore. I don't do it day to day, but I can do it. And so I called the person who does it today, and I'm like, since we launched A Can't Wait, did Memphis update their policies? Because it might have, like the police departments change their policies all the time. I last personally coded it in 2020. It's 2023. So I send a note like, what's up? Like, did we, because if we are wrong, we should say something. If they are in compliance with all eight and they still killed him, like something's off, right? Like we need to figure out what's up. So I look at our website that is up when they write these articles, and then I look at the policy myself because I like bring everything together. They have, I think, 2 of 8.
Hmm.
It was always 2 of 8. On the A Can't Wait site, we actually link to the policy. So you don't even have to just believe us. We want people to check. You should check. Maybe we get it wrong.
Sure.
But they wrote these like really definitive things, being like, this is why A Can't Wait failed, da da da. And it's like, you didn't check our website. You didn't read the policy yourself. You didn't get another person, forget us. You didn't get another person to read the policies for you. You printed it as fact because the police department said they had all 8.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you're like, well, we down bad if that's like, if
You
that's,
didn't do journalistic work.
yeah, you didn't do any work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So those critiques, I don't take them any type of way because I'm sort of like, you didn't do, I had another call with a big university you're working with, and I get on the call, and this woman is hot. She's like waiting for me to press me on A Can't Wait. And I say to her, like, when you read the policy, what did you think? Haven't read the policy. So what, I don't know what else to say to you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's I do. I think, and I'm just speaking as I'm not a person, I'm not an activist. I'm not really even a highly active participant in any movements. I think like what I do is write and talk. And from way far away, I think a frustration that people feel is this shit is not getting fixed. It doesn't feel like it's getting better. You're someone who I can see who's supposed to be fixing it. That's how they
I
feel.
get it.
And they're mad at you. And I don't want to spend the whole conversation talking about that particularly. Like I didn't invite you here to do that thing because I don't know, it feels counterproductive.
I do think that, so what I'm sensitive to is like, it's been 10 years and people are like, what happened, right?
Yeah.
And I think there are other people who identify as activists or organizers who people have integrity concerns about that might be legitimate, right?
Okay.
And like people should, like, I'm open to people. I live in public most days, and
You do.
that means that people have ideas. Like that is fine to me.
Right.
But like, at least come having done the work.
Yeah.
That's what drives me a little nuts. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I'm like,
of course, you didn't do the work. Let's talk about your life in public because among the places that I've run into you, the Netflix lobby twice.
That's so random.
Dumbo House,
Love a good
semi-regularly.
Love a good
Yeah.
soda.
And you're oftentimes by yourself as far as I can tell. You're there alone. And so I have been curious about what does your team look like? How much do you have, agents and publicists and all that other stuff? Like everybody else who I know that's famous, they're not activists. They are actors, producers, writers, musicians, whatever. So I think that naturally their teams coalesce around them as an entity in a way that makes sense to me, which is like they're an asset. We got to keep the asset valuable and increase the value of the asset. You're something different than that. So what does your team look like?
Yeah, so I was repped at CAA for a long time and then left CAA. I'm at UTA now, so like I have a team at UTA, but agents are really good at monetizing things, and I'm not always trying to monetize something. So they do the book, and if I do another book, they'll do it, obviously stuff like that. So they're great, and I just talked to Eric, my agent, yesterday, and he's great, and my editor for my first book is actually an agent now at UTA, which is crazy and amazing. And she's great. So hopefully I'm going to talk to her this week. So they're good. And then at Campaign Zero, it's like 40 of us. So it's me, and then there's a chief of staff who she and I sort of tag team most things.
Mm,
We actually don't have a standing weekly meeting because we are in a lot of meetings together, but we have like same vision, same mind. She's great. Like I'm gonna miss because I was late here. I'm missing the next meeting, and I
mhm,
called her like, "Hey, I'm not gonna be there." And we powwow out about what needs to happen in that meeting, and they'll be great without me. And then there's like a leadership team of managing directors, and then we have a campaign team, we have a research and development team, then we have a advocacy team. 90% of what we do is like policy work. So 10% of what we do is like what you would probably call direct service.
mm,
So we have a one person who like that is their full-time job, and then they do some other things. But that's sort of the structure with some contractors. But that's sort of the structure. And the cool thing, I mean, I obviously started it. I'm the ED, blah blah blah. But we try to build a thing that doesn't require any one person to do its magic. So I spend most of my days giving feedback on things like, the deck's coming in, or what are we going to do about this crazy thing? We run 35 campaigns, and a campaign to us is a discrete policy issue.
yeah.
So we have like a lot of balls running in the air, and the reason we do it is precisely because of the criticism, and the criticism not of us but of this work,
Sure.
and because of the urgency. So like what I think is fair is that people would say that one thing doesn't matter, and I'm actually sensitive to that. But they can't wait. I think you are right to say that like banning chokeholds is not the thing. We agree with you,
Right.
right?
Right.
Banning shooting at moving vehicles, not the thing. Now, if your insert here does not get shot at a moving vehicle, that is the thing for you.
Mm,
But cool, I get that it's not like the silver bullet, right? That makes sense to me. And because of that, what we would say is that we will cover all of the things.
mm,
That's like our philosophy. So we have 35 today. We have a roadmap of 110-ish campaigns that will be online all at the same time. That is like our belief because we feel beholden to this idea that like there is no one thing, we should do them all. And what we sort of do is we take a issue that like we only do issues that people have not already done a lot of work on, but we take an issue from 0 to 100, identify what the solution is, and then try and scale it. So like the one that you would know is Breonna Taylor was killed in Louisville, as you know.
yeah.
The question becomes, how do you ban no knock raids?
Mhm,
The short version is that it's not banning no knock warrants. That doesn't matter. So every single state that's restricted to ban no-knock raids, we wrote it. Like
mm,
that is what we do.
mm,
And we have a host of issues. So like the next campaign coming online is drug-free school zones. We have the only analysis of drug-free school zones across the country. All drug-free school zones are bad. They have nothing to do with kids or schools.
sure.
But the way it's so like Alabama is the best example. In Alabama, the law says that within 3 miles of every school and public housing project, you get a mandatory 5-year sentence if you sell drugs.
Huh.
3 miles is 15,000 feet. That has nothing to do with that school.
Yeah.
It's just a brilliant way to screw people over. So when
Right.
we're launching a site, you'll be able to put in your zip code and you'll see the map. When you look at it on the map, that means the entire city of Montgomery,
Right.
the entire city of
The
Tuscaloosa,
whole
and the entire
shebang.
city of Birmingham
Right.
is a zone.
Huh.
That's not what people think when they think about keeping the school safe,
Right.
right? So we do that before a gazillion issues, which means that like every week we're in a million meetings giving feedback, and we have like this whole workflow that every campaign goes through, and da 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 da. Da.
Sure.
So that is my day, and that's the team.
And then you as individual though, still, I mean, separate from the work, separate from the organization, the team of 40 plus people that are, helping you to get your work done, you have your own inner life. I'm interested in that. Because I've seen you around a lot. Like we've texted a little bit here and there at times, but like I haven't really spent very much time with DeRay, like the dude, just the person. You go on Z-Way as an example, and I know you're a representative of your work, but also like you're a person. It has to be exciting. I'm going on TV. I'm gonna go talk to Z-Way. Like, are you a friend of Z-Way's?
I know, yeah, I know Z-Way.
Okay, you know Z-Way. Like, what is that experience like for you? Are you there to entertain, or are you there to continue to push forward the movement?
I don't think I'm ever in this for here to entertain, but I do. Some of this is like since I was a kid. I was in student government since I was a kid, so
Okay,
I'm used to like going to
you do
things and
this.
yeah. And I did it. You know, my father raised us. My mother left when I was 3. Both of them were addicted to drugs. She didn't stop. He did. So she came
Mm,
back when I was 30. So he was
wow.
he was our parent for my whole life. So he would drive me around and stuff and da, da, da. And we've only talked about it as an adult, but he was, and I was the president of every school I've been to. Blah 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 blah. I was a student body president and class president in high school and in college. I was both presidents at the same time.
Bowden.
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 Yeah, yeah, you're fine.
You can
So
do
I
that.
say that to say that like I'm used to like events and you know you do the cool thing and da da, but I did a lot of it, so it's like and pretty early I was and like my father. Oh, what was I gonna say about Calvin? My father is like he just he was always really proud, but it was never over the top.
Mm,
So like I would be like, I want Super Buddy President. He's like, that's really cool. And then
mhm,
it'd be like, we go to the next day, right?
mm,
It was never like some crazy celebration of da da da. It was
sure.
very like, you said you're gonna do that thing, you did that thing, that's cool. If I lost, he'd be like, you said you're gonna do that thing, you didn't get it, and you tried. He was like very even. So as an adult, he gets excited about stuff. And it's weird to me because I'm not used to he was always really even. So like I did a book talk in Boston. We sell out this church, like 800 people, this whole thing.
Nice.
I'm like signing books in the back. We did 20 cities in my book tour. It's like this. So I'm signing books before it starts. And they say, DeRay, this guy like really wants to talk to you, like probably 30 minutes before the event starts. And I'm like, okay. So I'm like, you know, I get my mind ready to go meet this stranger who is insisting on talking to me before the thing. And it's my father. And I'm like, Daddy, why are you? I'm like, what are you doing here? Why didn't you like, I
Well,
know
he just
you.
showed
You're not
up.
like an estranged parent. It's
This
like,
man wants to talk to you.
You know, like
It's your
I
pop.
almost don't ever miss him because we've spent so much time together that
Yeah,
I'm like, Daddy, what are you? He
right.
was like, I saw that you were doing this. I thought I'd just come surprise you. I'm like, oh my God, Daddy, what are you
Oh,
doing? But it's like, you know, we don't have a seat. Like, where are you gonna sit? You know, like there's a ticketed event. It's
right.
like, so I'm like, can somebody find my father's seat? I'm like, da, da, da. Like, Daddy, what are you doing here? But he gets excited about stuff now. But I'm used to. I have 3 honorary doctorates, and I went to all 3 alone. Like, I'm just used to.
So you're used to doing things that are celebrated by others, but you don't feel like an internal you don't get balloons and rainbows.
I'm like excited about it. I think I just like try to make sure that none of that is freedom to me. None of that is less people killed by the police.
No,
So
no,
I just like never
no.
want to get like addicted to it. So I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm proud. This is very cool. Like I like did a thing at the Nobel Prize Summit,
Mm,
and that was really cool. You know, I was like,
yeah.
this is cool.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'm like, I try to stay grounded about like it's cool, it's amazing, and like we have a ton of work to do. Because what I want to leave behind with Campaign Zero is this idea that we like have mapped out the problems and solutions,
Hmm.
and that we've like set people up to continue to do this incredible work.
Right.
Like that's what I want to leave behind.
But do you have a yeah, this is helping. It's helping me. It's helping click some things because I'm a writer. I try to like know who you are without knowing who you are. That's
Yep.
what I do. I meet a person for 10 seconds and I'm like, I got him. And I haven't been able to feel that about you in 7 years. And I thought that this is the distrust that people find in each other that I thought I had you figured out. And I'm like, okay, this person is growing a platform as an activist. I never thought that I never thought that you were being an activist like out of some kind of ulterior motive. But I did think that at the end of it, you would flip it into a media career. I thought you would be like, a pundit. You would have it would be the DeRay show. You know what I mean? I thought because
That's a
like
cool show.
that's a really cool and like I mean, obviously you do that in podcasting in a way, but I thought it would be more like a Trevor Noah situation
Mm,
where it's like it's the DeRay show,
that's cool.
like you have an energy for it, you have a face for it, frankly, like you have a nice smile, people like to be around you, like you have a lot of the things that I see from those types of people. So I thought that was the play. Then I see you on Z-Way, and I'm like, okay, Z-Way's doing that job. DeRay is still being himself up there. Like she's doing the clown show, you know what I mean? Which is her job, and she's excellent at it. And I love Z-Way, and she got canceled, and I feel some type of way about it. Canceled by the network, not like canceled. And but as I see you, you're up there. You almost feel like you're trying not to get pulled into the dog and pony show a little bit. Am I reading that right?
Yeah, yeah. The Dog and Pony Show is like what is that?
Um, I feel like I'm never a part of entertainment is like you kind of lose control a little bit. You kind of like the 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 monkey, so to speak. I would never say that around white people, but like the monkey comes out of you and it's silly and it dances around and it's impulsive and it's like fiery and all that. I never see you like I've never seen you lose control. I've never seen DeRay like flat footed. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Is that who you are?
That makes me feel good that you've never. Yeah.
But why is that?
Uh,
Why does well first why does it make you feel good? I'm curious.
I spend a lot, like it is. I am serious about the work that I do,
Yes,
and
you
like
are.
and like how we do the work, and I I spend it takes a lot of energy
Mm,
to like do this work well,
yeah.
and to be able to talk about it and defend it. And there was a period of time where I was like the loudest voice
Right.
defending and explaining and da da da. And I put a lot of work into it. Like that's like a real. So I try not like that's why I don't get nervous about interviews or. Z-Way, I was definitely like, okay, I'm like, whew. I'm like, please. And I did a lot of prep on my side. One of my best friends, Donnie, we're just good. We like get each other. So I called him, he watched some clips and he was like, DeRay, if I was her, here's what I'd say.
Okay.
So
Y'all
he
practiced.
so he like is like he's like this is da 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 da. I'd say this, and I'm like I'm riffing back like here's how I would think about it, and like I don't know what she's gonna say. So, but the practice of it like gets me in the mind. So I'm like oh da da da. Like let me think about how I would. And he's like I've watched enough of her that this is how I would come at you. And he
Okay.
said DeRay, I would just say celebrity activist. He's like that would be my like given who I've seen her be
Yes.
that would be what I would like ding and just like
Right.
ding and
Right.
ding. And I was like, okay, cool. So we just played like we just went back and forth on that. So I do a lot of practice and I can be silly and fun. We just did a family fun day at the largest family shelter in New York City in
Mm,
East New York. And we did like snacktivities and face painting and we did all this stuff. And
mhm.
I was like I'm like camp counselor there. Like, Katy Perry, we run a summer camp and I'm on the board and
Right.
I'm like, sign me up for camp counselor. I'm like, but I'm not always camp counselor, DeRay,
Right.
because I'm not always at camp.
Yeah. And she asked you about Z-Way, and actually I'm gonna come back to the Katy Perry's and the you got all your famous friends. We're gonna come back to that, but Z-Way asked you about money, and I did a whole show just now on money that came out in October. Direct deposit, if you haven't listened to it on Audible. But I am curious about money. Like
She asked me my salary is what she asked.
that is what she asked,
She did
right?
not ask me about money.
Oh, interesting. Is that two different things?
Yeah, she asked me. Yeah, I mean, well, what were you gonna ask about money?
I was just gonna ask. I can assume how you make money, but I am curious, like, how do you make money? And also, like, I just assume you have a lot of money. I do. I
I
just
love that
assume
people
people
assume
throw a
that.
lot of money
That's
at you.
so
Like,
funny.
do you have a lot of
I don't
money?
have a
And
lot
how
of
do you
money.
make money?
People should give me money. I don't have a lot of money.
People do give you
No,
money. I'm
oh my,
certain of that.
but no, why are
No,
you
I'm
saying
not
that?
saying
That's
that.
so
I haven't seen
funny.
your account,
People
sir.
really, it is. So, I have a salary at Campaign Zero, and like
Mhm.
I said to Z-Way, like we file
It's
our
public.
taxes. Yeah, so
Yes,
like
I
people
know.
should look.
You put the
Um,
work on us on that
yeah,
one because
yeah.
I'm
I'm
like, I'm
like,
not gonna look it up,
it's
but
fine. You should look it
yes.
up. So I have a salary. That is really my income. I don't, so
Okay.
sometimes people will pay me to do talks and stuff like that. There was a period of time where I had no salary
Uh-huh.
and talks and stuff was like, that was how I ate dinner and I lived with family. So like I didn't have
Word.
a lot of expenses. I have a salary now. So I don't charge, let me tell you why, is that before I was a national civil rights activist, I
Mhm.
remember how few people would return my calls.
Mm.
Like I remember that. I'll never forget that. And that wasn't the spirit that I thought this work was. And that drove me nuts.
Mhm.
So early, like in the Ferguson days when, I started to have a profile, I said I'll never be him. Like I will, that just like, I hate that about people.
Yeah.
And I don't want people to think that the only way to be on a big stage or to do good work at scale is to like be a bad person.
Like be over there.
I don't.
You're a quick text back. You and Lena Waithe. Y'all the quickest text backsters in the world.
So we have a whole thing set up where like, every student that reaches out for an interview, we do.
Wow.
And it is, sometimes it is hard. It's just
Of
like
course.
because it'll be like a first grade class will talk about the police. I'm like, so
Aw.
I'm like, to them I'm saying, sometimes the police aren't nice to people. And they're like, because I'm not gonna take the 5-year-olds, the police are killing people. So but we do every single student that reaches out, we schedule any talk for somebody I know or a friend, we always do.
Yeah.
And then most like other talks that I can, like if the schedule allows, we'll do it. And we don't charge. And the reason why we don't charge is like that feels, I have a salary. This is like my work. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It feels sort of wild to be like, hey, the only way I can come talk about freedom, like that just feels wild. Now, there's some places where like these huge billion-dollar companies pay me on principle because like that's annoying.
Huh.
But like the community center wants to, like if I can make
Sure.
it there,
Right.
like I'm there.
Yeah,
you know?
but you have your salary. I mean, you're on boards. I have no idea if those are paid boards. I
None are
imagine
paid.
none are paid. Wow.
No,
I imagine people probably try to throw sponsorship money at you.
I don't take sponsorships.
Got you, but they are offered.
I don't know. We don't even have the calls.
You don't even have the conversations.
I was gonna do
Fascinating.
one with so I like go to the gym every day, and there was a brand that I wanted to do a deal with only because their stuff is expensive,
Huh.
and I wanted to do like I would do a posting deal to get a discount code for my friends,
Okay.
and we were donating all the money to a homeless shelter, but
Okay.
we didn't do it because there was like this weird thing. But that was the only thing I've entertained in the past 10 years.
Right.
It's like I don't get paid to post. Yeah.
And then
And the podcast, I do get paid on my podcast, but that's even, so when we first started the podcast deal was just with me.
got you.
But I was like, we should include other people's voices.
Sure.
So, and it was risky. This is before Cricket took off.
Yeah.
So we actually do like a profit sharing with the other hosts on the show
Yes.
that comes out of my cut. Like we did that
Gotcha.
earlier. It was like
Okay.
so like I do make money on it, but it's not like
Yeah.
it's like,
I mean, it's fair and perfectly fine to say you are an
in the book.
entrepreneur.
The book, I made money on the book.
Of course, right. But you're an entrepreneur, and like that's okay, right? I mean, you're an activist and you're an entrepreneur. That's okay to me. I'm asking you, is that okay?
I think for some people it's okay. I just, when I think about the money stuff, it's like, I slept in basements and
Yeah.
on floors for a year. So I lived and people know me from that year,
Mm-hmm.
and I had nothing. I had that's why I wore the vest. It wasn't, the vest is fun and it is cute and
But you
it's very-
needed clothes.
but I had no clothes. You know what I mean? It's like it
Right.
was a functional thing.
Yeah.
That was like the heaviest jacket I had for 4 years.
To
you
be
know what I
in
mean?
fucking St. Louis and
Yeah,
shit.
in the winter. So yeah, so things are really interesting to me, but I lived a really good life with
Huh.
none of them, with all my stuff in storage, with no furniture, so yeah, so that is one. And the second thing is I worry that money becomes a barrier to organizing or strategy.
Mhm.
Like, so I'll go meet, like I'm happy. Like let me go to like if the schedule allows,
Right.
I will find a way to make it happen. And again, the activists who charge to bother me, the idea that like the only way I'm coming to your community, and I get it, and I get the other side saying that like time is valuable, da 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 da, like all of it. I have a salary, like I
Right.
get. So Campaign Zero, like yes, I am paid to like lead the organization, and we have a lot of moving parts and da da da. I also think that like that salary is so I do good in the world,
Yeah.
and like I don't need anything else. You know what I mean?
Yes. I've done my fast research to become updated on some things that have been around you in the last few years. And, one thing that I think was talked about and written about, I wouldn't say exhaustively, but plenty, was like your relationship with your former partners at Campaign Zero. You're already making a face. So this is fun, right? Because like I'm like half journalist, half like Chad. So
Every question is a fair question.
my realist question is just how did those relationships deteriorate? Like how did they fall apart? And this is gonna be so fuzzy, but like, do you still love those people?
I'm like, what would I say if I didn't really know? It's my guy. It's like I love black people would be what I would say to you, but I'll give you more than that.
Come on, man.
Uh,
Just tell me the truth.
Yeah, I think that we got to a point where I think that what's true is that all of us still love Black people and want to do right by Black people.
Yeah.
I think it got to a point where we couldn't do our best work together,
Okay.
and I think that is true. Eight Can't Wait was a real breaking point, and
Mm.
this was so the aftermath of us not being together. It just sucks. It sucks when you're like, whether like you've been through a breakup before, even if it was like the craziest relationship in the
Yeah.
world. You're like, you were together for a while,
We still
right?
had so much fun together.
Yeah, and you just had so much of something together. It just was
Yeah,
a lot of something.
we were
right?
together. Yeah.
So that just feels away. And
Yes.
there's like no way for that not to feel away,
Yeah.
right? Even if you know you can't do it again.
Right.
It's hit the end, it just feels away. So like that is true. And with Eight Can't Wait, we got a lot of pushback. I mean, it was people when Eight Can't Wait. So if you remember, Eight Can't Wait launched first and then Defund comes out.
Mm-hmm.
And I was team Defund. Like that makes like the idea makes sense to me. They didn't roll out it didn't roll out with a strategy toolkit or
Right.
anything, but the phrase, and that didn't help us.
Right.
But I wasn't anti-defund, but what happened behind the scenes is that there were a set of people who were really intense about like defund should be the only demand.
Mm-hmm.
Like that should be the only thing in the space. And Eight Can't Wait is like taking off and da 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 and like DeRay and da 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 da. And one of the things that happened is that it became a take Eight Can't Wait down
Mm.
or.
Mm.
And that wasn't a hard decision for me. Because the question for me was, are we doing right by Black people?
Right.
Will this save people's lives?
Right.
People didn't like that we did it, how we did it, da 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 da. I've dealt with that my whole life.
Right.
But the question was like, will this save Black? That answer was yes. That wasn't a long question for me. Like, and there were a lot of things that changed in my world after I said yes to that.
Tell me about them.
Well, people just were like, we were very unpopular for a stretch.
Hmm.
And people did not want to be around me as we stood behind Eight Can't Wait. It was a hard moment.
Because they thought that being behind Eight Can't Wait meant you were anti-defund.
We were the sellouts and everybody else was the true abolitionists. Like so like behind the scenes, it was DeRay won't take direction from Black women. He won't take it down.
Right.
Who is he to think that he can do this when the demand is defund?
Hmm.
This is everybody, this is a radical transformative moment. And he's saying ban chokeholds. People already banned chokeholds and it didn't save Eric on it, right? So, like that one particularly drives me nuts because the New York City policy.
They were questioning whether you were really about what you're about. They were questioning, are you only halfway there?
Yeah, and they were sort of like, if he wasn't famous, that people wouldn't even listen to this crazy demand because the real people want defund. Like it was all of it. And we got calls from researchers being like, to raise the reason why the George Floyd bill. I mean, it was insane.
Wow.
But I was sort of like, this is right. This is not, I feel like I'm the Twilight Zone having to say that the police not choking people to death is a good thing. Like that feels like a crazy thing to defend, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it was real. But the question to me was, take it down and we will let go. Or all these people are gonna leave, we're gonna da-da-da. And that was not hard.
Right.
That was easy for me.
And many of them left.
A lot of things changed, but yeah.
I mean, you've said that twice. Can you tell me, at a high level, like when you say a lot of things changed, what does that mean?
Yeah, it just was, as much as people thought I was like, the voice of the whatever, in one moment people were like, he doesn't speak for us, right? Like it was literally like it was defund and I defended defund. I did my fair share to defend defund before anybody who launched defund did any press around it. Because I get it. Like, A, I don't want the strategy to fail because it's the right idea.
Yeah.
And B, I've had I know how to do this part of the work because I've done it more than you have, right?
Yes.
So I'll defend it and, I'll do press around it, da-da-da. And like, I remember I'm on a call with NBA coaches. Doc Rivers is like giving me the blues about defund. And Doc is a good guy and he's giving me the blues about defund. All stuff that like your grandfather would say, all stuff that your uncle, like fair points, right? And I'm like going back and forth and I had like successfully defended. Right. But I'm like doing a lot of work on defund. And I say that to say that, like, I was team, there can be many strategies, but when defund, I don't know, you probably remember when defund launched, it really was either you believe in black people and defund or you don't.
Yeah, I mean,
And I was sort of like, hey, I came up in systems. I used to work in school systems. And I know that this moment feels like everything's going to change, but this institution has withstood so much
hmm.
and it will withstand, like, it is not going to.
This institution being the police.
The police,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So there was not a world in my mind where I thought that policing was going to unravel in the summer of 2020. It did not. That was not even a pipe dream and not because I was not hopeful, but that's just not how systems change,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was
But
so
people mad and sad don't work like that. They don't I mean, like I said earlier, you have such a resolve. I've done my own like psychology on you from interviewing for my book, and I'm like, well, if this is what his childhood was like, then certain things that might completely disintegrate a person probably aren't going to do the same thing to you. You have a systems mindset. You came up working in systems, et cetera, et cetera. The rest of us, many of us in that time, it's just like just mad and angry and just frazzled and just like we just want something to be different and like I don't think everyone can think rationally in those moments. I don't think everyone can, and we need somebody to blame that it's not happening. And you're always right there because you have the biggest profile, frankly. Does that
I get it. Yeah, that's why I don't
it's
take
not
it.
right?
I don't take it as personal anymore. It
Yeah.
was shitty, like I was doing therapy twice a week. It was a
Oof.
hard, it's funny. I joke with my therapist now about it. I'm like, man, I'm good because we came from a Tuesday, Thursday morning every week. Just
Shit,
gotta like,
just to get through.
just like it was hard.
You hit on a couple things just there that I wanted to ask about. One is people accused you of not being willing to take direction from black women. And another, I think you touched on this, maybe I'm projecting it, but as I have read and tried to understand how some people close to you saw you at that time, how some like if I'm reading between the lines of some things that people say about you, a lot of it I think boils down to people being offended that you all did some work together and I don't know what the right terminology is, but like you became this larger than life figure to some people. You became somebody that people know. You're hanging out with the president, you're in rooms with the president, Katy Perry, you listed like et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Um, is there something inherently wrong with that? With being the person that becomes the big visible figure underneath all that?
I think the question becomes like, what do you do with it? Um, so I think that some people, there's another activist who I remember. People would like wait in line to take photos of me and stuff like that. And I understand it as like I represent something bigger than DeRay to you, and I get it. And because of that, like I'll stay all day to take a photo. Like if this makes you feel more connected to the work, easy, right? I'll do
Mhm.
it, no skin off my back. But I remember some people wanting that really badly. They just like wanted it. And I'm like, y'all don't even know.
Hmm.
I'm exhausted. This is like, I believe in it and it's right. And I'm tired. This is like crazy.
Right.
And they got it and it just tore them up, like
Mm.
it is,
How so?
yeah, it, they're like snarky or they don't want to meet people.
Mm.
Like you wanted people to wait to take a photo with you, but you don't really care about them. You don't want to meet these people. You
Mm.
just wanted like the fame and visibility or like, I did a lot of press. I mean, I probably done more than all of the activists combined. And I say that because like it is a lot of practice, a lot of skill. And I think about people who've done interviews recently. I'm like, I'm like, what prep did you do for that one? Because we all sound crazy because you sound crazy.
Right.
Like that sounds insane. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the interview where somebody said like white supremacy is taxes. And you're like, okay, this sounds I can't defend that. Like that
Mm.
sounds nuts. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I've seen people think that like, oh, this is just like a walk in the park. Just like, and it's like, no, it's a lot of work. And like we know the content. It's like Z-Way, I think this did not make it, but so I thought she would talk about A Can't Wait just because like we really got slammed. Like people were very frustrated. In her
Mhm.
question, she goes, DeRay, I'm gonna ask you something about A Can't Wait. I go, okay, what's up? She goes, name all 8.
Oh, shit.
And I'm like, oh, you tried me. And it's like, I know them because I know our work. But I like, but in that moment, I'm like, wow, nobody's ever asked me. People just assume I know what the 8 are. So
Mhm.
they asked me about the campaign, but she's like testing me, like, do you actually know the work?
Right.
And I like say all 8, and I'm like, whew, and I like say them in a crazy order because I have to like remember the visual because I like know the things. But it was like, we know that,
Yeah.
like, and I am not unique. Like our team, I mean, this is like what we hire. So we learned a lot from those exits. It's like we actually make every single person at Campaign Zero work on a campaign.
Mhm.
So like you could be like my executive assistant who scheduled this, like she is on a campaign about release cards. So like when you get out of prison and you have money in your books, you have to get it out, you get it back a certain way. And
Right.
like some places have these high fee debit cards. You like everybody, because what happened in the first iteration of Campaign Zero is that some people sort of were um they just didn't know the work well. Like if you ask them right now, like what was the work you did,
Yeah.
it would be like
Eh.
I don't know what the word, but like everybody now is like, I know the work. And then the second thing that we change is that like we share everything, all the data, everything is public. We build code books. So like we structurally don't even build anything. We're like, you are the only like that's not our philosophy.
Mm.
So we don't let like any one person be the only person who knows it or the only person who codes it or the only so like when the campaign manager does their data set about whatever, it gets checked by research and development because like they got to come in and make sure it's right. And then checking it, they understand the data set too. And then now every campaign has to be presented to the entire. That's the meeting I skipped. I prep for it tomorrow, but we're doing a campaign on jury selection policies and
Huh.
but like that has to be presented to the entire Campaign Zero team as like you have to present all your findings. Everybody pushes, asks questions, challenges, gives you kudos. Then you have to revise that and come back. Like we built all these mechanisms so there are no silos. So there's a lot of feedback. Like, and that was learning from the first exits.
And the other point there that you touched on was the criticism that you didn't want to take direction from black women, which I can imagine like stung very badly. Maybe so, maybe not. I imagine it would sting me if I heard somebody tell me that. Where did that criticism come from, and how did it affect you?
That was from the defund thing
Mhm.
because it was led by the BLM org and that was run by black women.
Mhm.
And it was like, if DeRay really listened, he would get rid of A Can't Wait because this is what we're saying. And like, y'all won't listen to gay men. I don't know. I'm not gonna use my identity as like a weapon in organizing. This
Mm.
is not a thing. And I'm not gonna let you use it against me. So I get it. Like I hear your frustration in this moment. And there were celebrities that who like called me being like, DeRay, they said I can't support A Can't Wait.
Wow.
It was insane. Like people deleted their posts because those people called them and da da da. And I'm sitting up here like you will just have to really convince me that banning neck restraints is bad.
Right.
I don't know. Like you got to give me something better than I'm black and I disagree with you. Like that's just
Yeah.
not. Or I'm a woman, I disagree with you. Or I'm a gay man. Like you got to give me something better than that. And I didn't hear anything better than that. I was like, that makes sense. That makes no sense. And I will tell you, one of the leaders of a big org that criticized us
Huh.
heavy. I
Huh.
mean, came for me deep. If you go to the website now, the like 3 successes they have, one is use of force policies, which is A Can't Wait.
Right.
One is no knocks, which we've done like the way to ban no knocks we made.
Mhm.
And the other is something I can't remember. But I'm like, you came for us heavy. And it's like, of course use of force policies matter. Like, people would say things like, oh, if they followed the policy, then I'm like, well, that's a critique of all law. Like, we just shouldn't pass laws then, right? Like if the critique is they might not do it, then
Right.
just wrap this up. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
okay. And people would say, like, they are reformist. And so we have a graphic on the website that explains this better because like words have meaning. It the status quo says it works. Reform says it works, tinker around the edges.
Mhm.
Like, like the thing works, just like fix some things. Harm reduction says it doesn't work, but we got to save people's lives.
Mm.
And transformational change or abolition says it doesn't work, we need a new thing. All of our work falls in abolition and harm reduction. Most of what the average person knows as organizing, like the everyday person, they are going to say something that is harm reduction, not what people call abolition.
Sure.
So, like, volunteering at the soup kitchen is not undoing hunger.
Yeah.
It is not. It is saying the food system is screwed,
Yeah.
and I'm going to make sure people can eat tonight.
There you
That's harm reduction.
Yes.
Like, bailing people out of jail is not the end of the carceral system. It is saying people should go home to, like, so harm reduction is what y'all are doing anyway.
Yeah.
So don't yell at me about, like, I'm not doing enough abolition. You're not doing any abolition. Like, we are actually doing structural change. You're not doing any. And I'm not actually mad at you about it. I'm only mad because you have a dishonest critique, and that drives me nuts.
Yeah, I see. And the Baltimore jumped out of you when you said screwed. I'm gonna land with this one last question because you've been here for almost an hour. This is the question we ask every guest.
Okay.
Show's Nothing But Anarchy. That's the show. You're probably the most well suited to answer this question, which you'll hear in a second, which is you get to choose one thing in your life, in society, in culture, and you get to literally just you tap your finger, it disintegrates, blows up, disappears, and you get to have it reborn as however you think it should be or should look. What's the thing and how do you want it rebuilt?
So I think the carceral stuff all comes back from, like, a response to conflict.
Mm,
So I would want us to, like, I would say, like, I want to, like, take away the carceral system, but that isn't enough. So it really is like I want to undo the way people think about responses to conflict, and then I
mm,
want to rebuild it. So, like, when we think about the police, it's like I'm sensitive. So, like, in a lot of rooms now, I don't say the word police because people have a relationship with that word.
yeah.
But if I walk into a room and say, "Do you need a person with a gun to tell the 10-year-old to stop screaming?" You don't.
No.
Do you need a person with a gun to tell you that your taillight's out? You actually don't need a person with a gun.
No.
So when people hear police, what they really hear is person with a gun.
Yeah.
And what we have normalized is that the response that, like, any response to conflict that I cannot control myself, I have to find the person with the gun. That is, like, what we have done. That is what policing is.
Yeah.
And, like, that is about conflict and a response to it. And that's why I like that.
Mm,
And what is jail and prison are an acknowledgement that sometimes people do things that are so against what we've agreed on that they
mhm,
have to be separated.
mhm.
Now, how we separate them is where we all struggle. Is that, like, putting people in cages? Not the right way to do it. But I don't think anybody would say that if you are, like, obsessed with hurting kids, you shouldn't be around kids. That feels like a pretty basic idea. That's not like
Yeah.
that doesn't feel wild. I think
Mhm.
we will get a lot of people on our side on that. If you hurt women, you shouldn't be around women.
Yeah.
Easy, right? The question is, how do we separate you?
Mhm.
It is not if we separate you, right? And if the only way to separate you is putting in a cage, then we failed. So we got to figure out what the other options are, but that can't be it, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I want to undo. Like, that's actually the core of, like, all this. So, like, that's why we have these crazy penalties and da-da-da, because we're like, well, you violated the norm around drugs and we need to separate you for 30 years. You're like, well, that's crazy, right?
Right.
And why do I actually need to separate the drug? Maybe I need to separate the drug dealer from drugs, not from the community,
Yeah.
right? You know?
Yeah.
And, like, there could be a different way to do that
Right.
than what we've done, because putting them in jail, certainly not separating them from drugs. You know what I mean? And it's putting them in a community of people who also did not great things. That's
Right.
not helpful.
Yeah.
So that's what I'd want to, like, undo.
Yeah, I love that. This is DeRay Mckesson. DeRay, thank you for coming through. Thank you for being a quick response, as you always are. Love, man. I
Woo!
appreciate you.
We did it.
Thank you.